everyone. This is my friend Maureen, and I'm going to ask her some questions today. And you guys may or may not know Maureen. I'm sure you will soon because she's got a new venture starting, but she is my friend from way back. I don't even know, Maureen, how we met. All I know is that we see each other every year at the Weston Price Conference and give each
Yeah.
other big hugs. And I'm always telling you how wonderful the food is there and thanking you for that. So thanks for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. And I was trying to figure out also how far back we go. I think my first conference was 2003.
Oh, you were way before me because my first one, I think, was 2010. It was Chicago.
Okay.
So I came
And
on the scene a little bit after. Were you like involved from the very beginning? That was one of my first questions for you.
I was involved in the organization, not in the food part. I was
Okay.
just very much involved. I became a chapter leader. I started volunteering at the conferences. I did a lot of volunteer teaching in my area. And within a few years, I was exhibiting and doing some presentations at some events. I think I got involved with food in 2012, maybe in Atlanta.
Okay, I was
I
there.
had done some fundraising before that for the conference. Yeah.
So when you were exhibiting early on, before the food and stuff, what were you exhibiting for?
Well, just Weston A. Price at other
At other conferences.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd go to Mother Earth News fairs and Pennsylvania Association for Sustainable Agriculture and events like that. So I went in helping other people exhibit until I started just exhibiting myself and doing some speaking. Yeah.
Oh,
And
got it.
I love to teach. So
Oh, and you're so good at it too. So then, well, let's go back. So did you always raise your family this way? And, like, were you sort of a real foodie from the very beginning?
I was a real foodie from the very beginning. However, I had no deep understanding of what all of that entailed until I was raising my own babies. I gave up. I can't believe it's not butter early on. But I'll tell you that when I was young, I had a mother who was always obese, unhappy, had some issues, including medical and mental issues. And at one point when I was about 12 years old, she changed her diet and moved away from mostly processed foods to minimally processed foods. And at that point, she lost, I think 150 pounds and was no longer asthmatic, didn't have the allergies, didn't need to keep the medications in the fridge, and didn't have blood clots and all of that anymore. So that made an impression on me when I was young. I certainly didn't follow those kinds of principles early on in my young adult life, but I pretty quickly, in thinking about that change in my mom, realized that I wanted to raise my own kids, my own family with a natural foods diet. So from the time I got married and was having children early on, I did try to do whole foods. I did not understand, didn't even begin to understand anything beyond just basic organics or whole. But we bought a farmstead. Actually, we lived for 9 years on a rented farm where we first started milking a cow, raising chickens, and I had a garden. And then we bought our own place. And at that point in time, I was having a lot of interaction with old order Mennonite and Amish farmers. I was buying some of my food products from them when I didn't have enough of my own. For instance, I had a raw milk farmer named Mark Nolt, who, by the way, has been prosecuted, raided, and constantly harassed by the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture and the FDA multiple times, raided 4 times, which also made a big impression on me. But his wife kept telling me about this cookbook that I needed to get. I needed to read it. And I kept saying, Marianne, I don't need another cookbook. I have too many cookbooks. And finally, one day I picked up the cookbook, probably at their farm, and said, oh, actually it was their farm. And I bought it and took it home, and I started reading, and wow, that Nourishing Traditions cookbook just totally opened my eyes. Then I
Cool.
bought.
What year was that, Maureen?
Oh man, that was probably about 2001.
Okay.
And at the same time, I heard Dr. Ron Schmid speak at a natural living conference that I used to peddle my soaps and lotions. And so I could go hear people and learn. And at one of those conferences, I heard Dr. Ron Schmid speak. He was talking about the research of Dr. Weston A. Price, and he was focusing particularly on raw milk, which I already was doing. But it was like an epiphany. My eyes just were opened, and wow, light bulbs went off, and everything finally made sense. I had dabbled in veganism before it was called veganism, the Hallelujah diet. That kind of made sense to me for a while, except for that then it didn't, because I saw all through the Bible examples of God's people being told to consume animal products.
Is that what it was called then, though? The Hallelujah diet?
That the Hallelujah diet is a vegan diet. I don't know if there still is a following for that or not. It was a Christian-based movement. I don't remember the name of the founder of that, but yes, that was totally vegan. Get rid of all animal products, don't need them, go back to the diet of the Garden of Eden. Now, I don't know, they might have embraced honey. That's one thing that they may have, but they said no animal products anyway. And I thought, well, the Garden of Eden, that makes sense because people were really healthy and they lived a long time. But then I had to really think about it. I kept researching, reading. I heard Ron Schmid. I read the book, What the Bible Says About Healthy Living. And that started to open my eyes some more. So I realized that that the Garden of Eden was one particular time and place that stopped existing about 6,000 years ago, however many thousands you want to go. But we're not there anymore. We live in a completely different environment, a completely different time. And when Noah and his family stepped off the ark, God told them to eat meat. So
Right. Thank God, right?
Yeah, I know. It's wonderful. And after all, he sent Noah 7 of every clean animal, or several clean animals, for a reason. So, and then of course they sacrificed as soon as they left the ark, but then that was at the point that God told Noah and his family to eat meat. And then we see numerous examples, including when the angelic visitors visited Abraham and Sarah while they were still Abram and Sarai. And she produced a meal for them, which included veal and butter and milk and bread, but animal products. And then I started to look at the sacrifices that the priest made to God. And of course, you have to understand that the sacrifices were then taken home to the priest's families. That was how they ate. And those sacrifices consisted of things like meat, organs, fat. And the most prized of those sacrifices that God wanted for himself even included the heavy fat around the organs that we're always told, because it's saturated, is so unhealthy. And yet it was prized and valued by God. So doesn't it make sense that we should be eating those things?
Makes
So I
sense to
started
me.
in that. It does. It makes perfect sense. And then as I'm reading Nutrition and Physical Degeneration and Nourishing Traditions, I'm putting all these pieces together. And I just kept seeing how everything that I learned through Weston A. Price Foundation, the same principles were rooted deeply in biblical principles and teaching. And so it just makes sense. If we're to be healthy, we need to eat the foods that God gave us to eat. We're not guaranteed perfect health here. We live in a fallen world, and now especially a highly toxic world. But we need to eat cleanly, and we need to eat those foods that God provided us for good health. So that's where I have been for many years. And those foods have taken my family through many challenging times, challenging health events, and of course, multiple pregnancies. I have 9 children. I didn't learn these principles until later on. When I heard Ron Schmid speak, our 6th child was an infant.
Okay.
I was nursing him at the time. So it was then that I started to learn really hardcore these principles. But I've always been interested in learning about health. I've always read lots of books and articles and journals. I used to pick up the well-being journal at the health food store. And before there were computers, I was delving into it. So once I finally picked up that Nourishing Traditions cookbook, everything made sense. And I immediately began to change my family's overall diet, much to the benefit of all of us. And in that, I'll add that one of our children, our second son and 4th child, I was dabbling in that hallelujah diet at that time. So I did have a cow. I was milking a cow. I had chickens. We were eating eggs. But other than that, we had very little animal input. I was following the soy. Soy protein was really getting to be a big thing at that point in time. I ate a lot of soy shakes, soy this, soy that. When he was born with pretty severe gut damage. And again, this is before the internet. All I could do was attend conferences, pick up articles and books wherever I could. We had a very limited budget, so I couldn't go out and buy a lot of books either. It took us it took me about 5 or 6 years to really figure out his issues, but I did. And I realized that the core or the root cause of his gut issues, even at birth, were probably just due to my high intake of soy.
Now, were you able to help him regain his health and get his gut back in shape?
Yes. I eventually found the specific carbohydrate diet, which then Natasha Campbell McBride tweaked into the GAPS diet. But before she had done that, I had started to learn about specific carbohydrate diet, and I was able to correct his diet. It was very challenging. Thankfully, he was always an easygoing, wonderful, eager to please kid, not a difficult one.
Yeah.
You know, some of our kids are not so easy.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
No. But thankfully he was one who, if I put food in front of him, he would eat it, and he might look sad that he couldn't eat. And initially I took away wheat and I just made spelt bread, and I didn't realize that even that was very difficult and causing more damage. So I removed all gluten, all grain, all soy, dairy except for fermented dairy.
Mm-hmm.
And he gradually began to heal. And then at one point, all of a sudden, his cheeks were raw and red again. So there was some irritant again. And I felt so defeated. What in the world is going on? We thought we were over this. And here it was that he was overly sensitive still to citrus and citrus bioflavonoids. I was giving him whole C capsules. So I figured that out. We ceased that for a while and just worked on gut healing. And after a year or so, he's fine. And he's now 24 years old and about to be married, and he can eat anything, whether he should eat or not.
Awesome. What a great story.
Yeah. So that was pretty powerful. Yeah.
So let's go back to, okay, so you said that you started doing the food at the conferences in 2003. So
no, I think 2012, I think.
Oh, 2012. Okay.
I began as a chapter leader.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So 2012. So, but tell us, how do you pull that off? Because I know it must take a lot of help. And I know that the hotel staff is, a big part of it. But you have to train them. So maybe take us through that a little bit.
Well, when I first started in Atlanta, and that might have been 2013, I don't remember, but I think it was 2012. I came on as an assistant to someone else. And I'll tell you that the first 2 years working with that person, I really didn't learn anything. things were not done or handled the same way as I handle them now. And I felt totally clueless. But I tried to learn on my own whatever I could and figure out how you handle all of this. And then a few years down the road, we took on someone else and we worked together. And I actually learned, that was Rosie Huang from California. I learned more from her and we worked together. And then I started to get it. But we work primarily with, or directly with, Paul Frank, who also was helpful in helping me to learn the things I needed to learn. Eventually, I think it was Baltimore several years ago that I just took over. I was given the reins. I still felt like I was very much in the learning process, but Paul and I worked together in planning a menu around what foods we can have donated or bartered from farmers. And we always try to look for farmers in the area where the conference will be. But we also have a lot of input from farmers and producers from all over the country. So Paul is the primary sourcer of all of those things. I do some sourcing as well, but he's behind the scenes working all of that out with farmers and producers. And then we're taking what we have access to and designing a menu around that. There are some things that we've chosen to carry over year after year because they've just been so successful.
Like what?
Like we do an organ meat chili now every Friday lunch.
And that's so good. And it doesn't taste organy.
No, it doesn't, not at all.
Mm-mm.
So we came up with kind of a ratio of meat, ground beef. I like to use ground beef and ground pork to organs. And it's all ground together. And I have the kitchen, most kitchens in a hotel actually don't have a grinder, but we make sure that they have a grinder when we're there so that we can mix that all together. It needs to be thoroughly mixed. And that's how you avoid, part of how you avoid that organ taste and sometimes texture that people might object to. So we want people to learn to appreciate those kinds of foods. Thus, we find recipes that we can use, like the chili, that really work. And then we've carried that over. Another example of that is our pâtés. We do a pâté for the Thursday evening dinner, which is a pork liver pâté. And then we do a pâté, a chicken liver pâté that is my father-in-law's recipe, and it's just scrumptious. So we do that on Sundays for brunch. However, until this year, that chicken liver pâté hardly got touched. People still weren't wanting to really eat organ meat that much unless it was totally disguised.
What do you think the difference was this year?
I think people are just finally getting it, that these foods are important and they're willing to try.
You know what else? I think it's because you had it over in a side table, not in the main line.
That helped, I think, too.
Because I think people were learning that the desserts were on this over in the side tables, and then or that something special was over there, and so people went over and to check it out and made a point to get some. That's my theory.
I think that you're probably onto something. It made it a little mysterious and more attractive, perhaps.
Yeah.
So all of the pâté that we made was consumed. Nothing was left at all. I didn't even get any.
I love it. That's crazy.
The same thing happened with ferments this year. We usually source ferments from whatever area we are. This year I couldn't get ferments, so I made my usual amount. I've done this. It might be the third time I've done the majority of the ferments. I made the same amount as I normally make, and normally I'm bringing home a bucket or two. It disappeared. I mean, there wasn't actually enough to go around. It would last through most of each meal, but then it would be gone.
So you're talking about the different krauts, the different sauerkrauts that you made, right? Or the kimchi or whatever?
Yeah, I did apple kraut, dilly kraut, and curtido with the organ meat chili. And then my friend, your friend also, I think Kathy, she used to be Kathy Harris. Now she's Kathy Frisch, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right. She actually was the one who made the gingered carrots for our Saturday banquet.
Those were
She
so
offered to
good.
help in some way. Could she help me? Could she get something? And I said, well, I don't really want to have to make all the ferments. Can you find some? She couldn't find any locally, so she offered to make that, and I was very relieved because I have a lot of work to do
Yeah.
around that conference.
Do you
So I
sleep
was
at all
happy.
during the whole weekend or ahead of time? Like, when is it the most stressful? During or right before or when?
I don't really feel like it's stressful. I just feel like it's really busy. The stress comes in when we're having an issue. And there are background issues that usually people don't know about, but this year there were some shortages which were due to two main things. Those things are stressful, but I don't let it stress me out. I just have learned to tackle it.
Well, so what
So
were the two things? I know one of them was that people were kind of overfilling their plates, right?
absolutely.
So,
That's a major problem. I put signs out, and this year I printed them on yellow paper and put them out at the top. And we were trying to tactfully announce to people as they're moving through the line, it's not an all you can eat buffet. It's a
yeah.
buffet, but doesn't mean you pile up. And people still pile up. And so I try to help people think about that if you take more than your fair share, somebody back there isn't going to get it.
Right.
And with one meal in particular, this time that happened. We had enough food for over 900 people, but the protein, the roast beef, ran out about halfway through. And I'm seeing even children's plates piled. So then not only do the people back there not get it, they didn't get roast beef. Only about half the people got, maybe 2/3 got roast beef. And I felt like it was generous proportions. They were, fairly fat slices. I would normally take 2. I didn't get any.
Yeah.
I mean, I make sure I taste almost everything before it goes out. So I know that the taste is right. I'll have the kitchen make adjustments if not. Anyway, yeah, if people take
So what
3
was the other thing? You said there were
pieces.
two reasons.
Well, we had such good attendance, and this is something that we're working out with registration, that there's a point where we have to say no more meals.
Oh,
And that wasn't completely understood. So
oh,
more meal tickets were sold than we had food for.
oh.
So I was trying to stretch and make it work, and it could have worked, but
Especially they had the last minute people who, I mean, they can't
it was
expect.
a lot of last minute people.
Yeah.
So we were prepared with food for a maximum of, the top meal we had was 850. Most meals were in the 800, 825 range, and we always have a buffer. So including our buffer, we were prepared for about 850.
Mhm.
But there were 2 meals that were 900 or a little over. So yeah, that's a little problematic. So that's something that the office and I are working on for next year. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. We're just going to see what we've got and say, this is the cap, no more. But then we've also got to figure out how we can help people understand to be fair in their consumption. And in addition to what we just talked about, it's really upsetting to me when I see the banquet staff cleaning up, clearing tables, and you see piles of the very things that we're running out of and people can't eat it. So it goes to trash.
Oh, that would be so frustrating. You know what? I just thought of an idea. What if you had the person who was taking tickets and even had this on the sign, because you got to make people accountable somehow, and maybe have it right on the sign, sorry we have to do this, but we do have people watching because, we have run out before, not because we didn't have enough for every person, but because some people were overfilling. We just take, and you've said before on the sign, it says take a reasonable amount. And then
Mhm.
just say on the sign, we do have someone watching. And then have that ticket person kind of keep an eye out. I don't know, what that'd be an awkward position for them. Or maybe even Paul,
Very
Paul.
awkward.
Paul
Well,
could walk
Paul's all
around.
over the place, and Paul's all over the place. And by probably Saturday lunch, he he was up and down the hallways, tactfully stating the same kinds of things. I was up and down. The staff, the banquet staff works like crazy. And I'll tell you, this hotel in Allen, Texas, I wish we could be there every year.
Really?
They are fantastic. They get us, they love us, they work hard to please us and to make everything right. But we have volunteers taking tickets and volunteers helping with all of that. And it does put them in an awkward position.
Well, they could at least say as they take the tickets, remember, like they could be another point of reminding, like, remember, we don't want to run out of food, take a reasonable amount, I mean, I think the
Yeah.
more people hear it, then they think of it right as they're going through.
Yeah, and so we need to do something like that. I've even thought maybe the volunteers need to wear big posters on the front that say that I don't know. But, we're open to suggestions, and there's some suggestions that people have made are reasonable suggestions, but there are logistical and cost problems involved as well. So,
Yeah.
there are many facets to this. We're working on it, but overall, we have, I think, really good food. I thought the quality of the food this year was the best we've ever had.
It's amazing. Every year, you can't even believe, I tell people that the food at the conference is better than you would get at the most high-end restaurant that you could go to.
Yes.
Because
I
it's
think
over and above. It's the ferments and the sourdough bread, which was extra awesome this year, by the way. And the organ
I
meats.
did that myself, so I'll take credit for that.
I know you did. I love it. I have that picture of you with all the loaves of bread in the kitchen. So who helps you implement all of this, and how in the world do you do it all?
Well, Paul and I, again, we do work together in the planning. I write recipes, Sally approves menus, and then we have conferences, just like you and I are doing. We have conferences with the chefs, the banquet head, and the whoever's in charge at each hotel. So we talk about our needs and our wishes and our requirements. Thankfully, this year, this hotel was well aware, and they'd done just a great job 2 years ago as well. So they really got us. But every time you step into a new hotel, the dynamics are always different. The personalities are different. So of course the dynamics are different. And sometimes the chefs are not as eager or happy to work with you. They're doing it more because they have to than they want to. But usually the staff is interested and curious about what we do and why we do it. We've been able to do a lot of teaching in the kitchens. In some instances, several in particular that I can think of, we've been able to help hotel staff, kitchen staff, spouses of staff, children of staff to overcome gut issues and mental health issues. And
that is so cool.
Because we're working with them in the kitchen and they're learning, and this is why we do, and this is what happens. And this is what you might want to try to correct that problem. And so it's wonderful to hear back even years later how well someone is doing because of what you've taught them. And another aspect that I absolutely love about being in the kitchen is that usually there is an international staff. In Texas, you've got a lot of Latinos, and that's the main, I would say, minority in the kitchen. In other hotels, you have people from all over the world. And I love just asking questions, developing relationships, and learning about food cultures, whether it be from France. We had a French executive chef in Baltimore, or Austria, or Africa, Italy, people from all over the world. It's so interesting to learn the culture in general, but specifically their food culture. And those people, when you work side by side with them, you develop really warm relationships, and you both get really positive things out of that relationship. I just love learning about the food cultures.
Yeah, that
So
is so neat. Do you
yeah,
have any like big mishap stories or anything crazy that happened?
oh yeah. We've had everything from the walk-in cooler being loaded with all of our prepped food for the next day, ready to go, and then the cooler breaks down.
Oh no.
And so all the food has to be tossed,
Mhm.
and you have to start from scratch, but you don't have the same amount of raw materials. So you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to do this? Maybe we make a change on dessert. One year when we were preparing conference cheesecake, which I've tweaked over the years, and Rosie Huang helped early on with tweaking that. So I think now after this year, it's fantastic. But
Yes, it was.
um, the Amish typically provide raw cream cheese. Well, one year it wasn't raw cream cheese. I opened the bucket. The pastry chefs in the kitchen were getting ready to go to work to make it. And I think it was sour cream or something, but it wasn't cream cheese and it wasn't workable.
Mm.
So times like that, and that also happened 2 years ago with another product, and this year as well. You look at what you've got and what can you do with it. So that year we made a completely different dessert. There was no conference cheesecake.
What'd you make?
I think we made a a tart, a citrus tart or
You're
something.
pretty good at rolling with it, aren't you?
You have to, or you sink.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I have gotten better at that, but I do that at home too. And I do that when I do smaller events in my area. If something doesn't work out, you come up with another plan, or you already have another plan, but you look at what you've got and you make it work. So we made that work. The biggest disaster really that we've ever had, I think, is that we got poultry in from one supplier once, and some of it was supposed to be stock and some of it was supposed to be for a meal, but it was all mixed up. In the same cases, it was all mixed up. What do? We just had to work with it. And unfortunately, that chicken dinner, I think it was a brine roasted chicken, a lot of it just wasn't very good.
Remember that one? What year was that? Do you know? Where was it?
That was 2 years ago in Dallas, actually, at the same hotel. Yeah.
Oh, I
And
didn't remember that.
all these cases of chicken, we opened them up, and there were not stew hens and meat birds. They were just all together. And because the meat birds were young meat birds, they were smaller in size. They weren't the big chunky broilers like we often see. So it was pretty difficult. And we did the best we could do. There was another time when we were given, I think goose or duck. That was in Montgomery, Alabama. And in that case, the chef said, oh yeah, we talk about what we're going to do with it. And it's important to us to allow that kitchen and that chef to shine. So even though I provide a lot of recipes, we also provide areas where they can just do what they want. We did that this year with duck.
That duck was amazing, and I want that recipe.
Yeah, I need to nudge him to give me that. I know what he did, but I don't know the exact proportions. We discuss everything, how he's going to do it, what ingredients and all of that. And I'm in the kitchen watching it all happening. But that and the organ meat chili, in the past, I have provided a recipe. This time I said, we're in Texas. I want you to make it Texas style. You do your thing. I gave parameters and I said, go ahead. So he did. So I'm waiting on the chili recipe and the duck recipe from this year's. But there was another time when a chef, oh yeah, I can do this. It'll be wonderful. I'll do it this way, blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay, that's good. I was working with Rosie at that point. I think that was Montgomery, Alabama. And he didn't nail it. He put it in a coffin.
Oh no.
It was awful. So, the kitchen is doing the work. I'm doing all the planning with Paul and the managing and providing most of the recipes and overseeing everything. And I get in there and I get my hands dirty. But the staff is doing most of it. So if a chef or a kitchen staff blows something, it's not like you can just redo it. But I do try to keep a really close eye on things. I've learned to be really careful and be right there, especially if I don't know. In this instance, this year, the sous chef was the same one that I worked with 2 years ago. And actually he saved our banquet meal that year because our a banquet chef 2 years ago walked out. So that's another mishap. He walked out on Saturday afternoon during prep for our Saturday banquet.
Why?
That was unexpected. He was totally frustrated. I won't go into it. I understand why. He told me, I get it, but he didn't handle it very well. So he walked out. He came back about 4 hours later, but by that point, Jason, our sous chef, just took over. He didn't skip a beat. So kudos to Jason. I'm sure I'll send him a link to this. Jason knows I love him and appreciate him so much. He's a lot of fun.
So he was there this year again too? Jason was there again?
Yep. And he's really good at what he does.
Nice.
And our executive chef, Chef Gabriel Robles, was really good. He's very detail oriented. He's a true chef. We talked about every little detail and he just had it between he and Jason. And, Sally mentioned on Saturday night, I really wanted to give more accolades to the kitchen. She didn't realize how much had gone on back there. But the general manager of the hotel, not the general manager of some section, the general manager of the hotel was in that kitchen all day long, every day from the moment I stepped in. And I arrive on Tuesday before we have to get rolling right away. So we have meetings, but they're cooking by Wednesday morning. If they haven't already started with what they've already had, then what I bring in, they're rolling with it. And the general manager in his nice business attire and his beautiful, he's a nice man. He was in the kitchen every day. He was a chef before he went into management, and he just, nobody in that kitchen was stressed under any circumstances. It was wonderful. But that general manager, Ray, whether it was making stock or helping with the chili or braising the duck, he was there every day. I know he had to step out to go run the hotel, but he'd be back in there. So he was there most of the time. So we're experiencing shortages of everything across the country right now. That hotel is experiencing really stressful staff shortages, but the whole hotel is working together. So that's an example. That general manager, Ray, every day in that kitchen, happy to be there.
Aww.
Still managing to keep the hotel afloat.
How refreshing, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Especially when there have been some instances where it's not that way and people are grumpy, and even your banquet chef doesn't like that you're there and makes snide remarks.
Well, you must sleep really well after the conference, right?
Yes, definitely.
All right, well, let's transition over. I want to hear about your new business venture now. So first of all, tell us how you got the idea and what are your goals for this business, and then how are you going to implement it? Tell us the whole story.
Okay, so the whole story is that as a Christian, a mom, a wife, and friend, I have struggled for years watching people sitting in church with growing prayer lists, growing waistlines, growing physical and mental ailments, and never thinking, what does God have to say about this? It's always, what pill do I need to take? What procedure do I have to have? this person, Susie, has this major issue. Is she going to be okay? What do the doctors say? And I've always in my mind gone back to, what does God have to say? He gave us a plan, not just for life and for how to be a Christian and all of that. He gave us a plan to be healthy and to recover from illness. Again, as I stated earlier, not that we are guaranteed perfect health. We're not supposed to live forever on this earth. I actually have one acquaintance who actually does believe that we're supposed to still be living hundreds of years, but
Oh boy. I just love what Joel Salatin always says. He's like, none of us are getting out of here alive.
That's right. I love that too. And by the way, Joel is a big backer and supporter and mentor for me. He totally encouraged me, continues to encourage me, helped me come up to refine the idea, come up with a name, get started, talked me out of a nonprofit into a for-profit company. Not that we're making any money. We're still sinking tons and tons into it.
It just has to, that's just more of like a tax question, right? Isn't that really all the differences?
It's tax, but it's also, if you are a nonprofit, you're very limited. The government is watching you. You cannot stray from your given, parameters that the government, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why within the Weston Price Foundation, we have to be so careful about staying away from politics and religion, because that's outside of our scope. So with an actual company, which we are an LLC, you are not bound by anything like that. You can go where you want and do what you want. And Joel is also helping us to understand when the point comes that there actually is profit, which hopefully we will see a year from now. I just want to pay ourselves back for what we put in.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get to that point, he's also helping me to understand how we navigate the tax system. But I went to him last fall with this idea that had been fomenting in my mind and in my heart for years. As I said, it bothered me so much to see people with these major struggles and not have a clue that the Bible had anything to say about it. And yet I kept seeing this and that in the Bible. So I brought the idea to Joel about a year ago. He said, sounds like a good idea, something that some others that he knew had tried to start several years ago, tried to get something going, but it wasn't the right time, didn't work, fell apart. But he said, I think that you might be onto something now. So I met with him again in January of this year, spent a wonderful afternoon sitting at his desk by his fire in his neat old house, hearing stories and being encouraged. And when I was done, I thought, okay, I can do this. Joel's convinced me I can do this. But what I knew is I couldn't do it alone. I had no idea where this was going to go, but I called my oldest daughter who lives in St. Augustine, Florida, as I was driving home.
This is Erin, right?
Erin.
Yep,
yeah.
I got to meet her
I
at
hadn't
the conference.
told her any of this. I'm so glad for people to have met her, because isn't she she's a beautiful person inside
She's a
and out.
sweetheart. You can tell through and through.
I always tell people she's a beautiful person. She could have raised herself. She just is a beautiful person. At any rate, she knew nothing about this idea. She knew that it bothered me and it bothered her that Christians totally missed this, but she didn't know I was thinking any of these thoughts. And so as we're talking, she said, Mom, I've been thinking about starting something just like that down here. So I said, wow, think about it. Can we do this? So by the end of the weekend, we were working, and by March, we were legally a company, and we had things rolling. Now I'm still working part-time for Weston Price. I'm still doing a lot of events and still have 5 kids at home. I'm down to 4 as of this week. One moved out. But life is pretty full. But I'm managing to go out and teach and do seminars and filmed. I filmed 2 courses. Neither of those courses are up yet.
Are the courses part of your new business, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So what we have decided to do is that We will sell classes and courses online. So people can become either a membership of God's Good Table. They can become members and have access to anything on our website at all, which we're building content now. Or you can buy a class or a course. We also have some exclusive recipes, which will go out to members or which will be available. But we also have a great deal of free content. So I'm not willing to give everything away because we have to pay ourselves back. And
right. So tell us, what's the name of your site?
So it is godsgoodtable.com.
Great. So people can find some of that content up now, not the classes, but some
there's
other
a
stuff.
lot of content now. There are some classes up. I know there's a sourdough bread class. I think there's a broth. There are various ones up that I've already filmed via Zoom. There are a lot of articles, including a really good one by Joel and several that I've written. I have more coming from other content creators, other practitioners and professionals. We have webinars. So I filmed one webinar this fall with Sina McCullough, PhD, who she's just wonderful. I love her very much. She, along with Joel, wrote a book called Beyond Labels, and she's written another book as well. She deals with healing, not just with food. She has a course, which is available called Wilding. I don't remember. I actually subscribed to that. I bought the course. But she speaks about our emotions and how they help us to heal or hold us back. It's very enlightening and powerful. So I have a kitty cat right at my microphone. So if you hear a purr, that's her. So I've got Sina McCullough. I've done interviews with Del Bigtree, with Judy Mikovits. Del Bigtree got taken down immediately. So we're deciding on another platform to start putting some of our content.
On YouTube, you mean?
Yep, that was taken down, I think, within 24 hours. And it's not even a highly controversial interview. We covered a wide variety of topics, not just the dreaded word. Judy Mikovits is still up, and that was a really good interview. I have more interviews coming up. There's one with Joel Salatin and Rory Feek, which is on our homepage.
I saw that one. That's so good.
Yeah, I really liked that one. And I think there are a couple of others, but I have several more that are filmed and waiting to be edited. That's kind of on my shoulders, and I'm not good at that.
So you do the editing?
Only for these kinds of things. And I'm learning. There's a learning curve, as you know.
Do you have a Mac?
Yes. Yeah. So I kind of need to spend more money and buy Final Cut Pro.
Oh, I disagree. I think that there's no better way than doing it on your Mac myself. I think the other stuff is more complicated.
Well, I agree. Final Cut Pro is an Apple program that a lot of my friends use. And then I have a professional videographer and editor who's done the courses. And he's giving me recommendations for both equipment and ways and means of doing things. And he does, of course, recommend Final Cut Pro. So I just have to spend more money and
it's always more money, isn't it?
But that's why, there comes a point where, okay, we have to actually start bringing some money in here. But at this point, Erin and I are very happy to just put in everything that we need to, because our goal is to reach Christians and just the world at large with this health giving information, and both building health through nutrition, maintaining health with good nutrition, building healthy families with good nutrition, but also using natural healing modalities. Pretty much everything that Weston Price teaches and does, we're trying to take it to the faith community. We're also doing conferences and seminars.
Nice.
We're doing a nose to tail eating conference at Polyface, June 11th and 12th.
Are these on your site, these dates and places?
They will be within the next few days.
Okay, so can people sign up for updates from your site? Is there okay.
There is a link to sign up for newsletters, and we're not pounding people with constant emails, but they're coming up. Our social media is sharing things as well. So we're on Instagram and Facebook. We will be doing probably we haven't decided where else we're going,
Yeah,
but
it's hard to know
obviously,
which extra platform is going to take off or just be a waste of time.
yeah, I've been on MeWe for several years and I almost never look at it.
Yeah.
It kind of goes in spurts, but I think we need to move away from Facebook, as we all probably agree.
Yeah.
They'll want to utilize it for various reasons, but we need to have another platform where we can speak and share without being shut down. So I'm mostly excited about the webinars and the conferences. Our conferences are designed to be Saturday, Sunday. The overarching theme is food as medicine, but we're designing the Saturday, Sunday format so that Sunday morning includes worship and praise. And then
Nice.
we
I
follow
love this.
over a nice meal. Yeah, always we have to have food. So I'll be designing menus for each and then having caterers. I'm not doing that. I'm going to be too busy with everything else. So we'll have caterers following our principles, using our foods, just like we do at Weston Price conferences. So it'll be really good food. It'll be great fellowship. And for instance, at the Polyface event, June 11th and 12th, Joel will be our preacher. I'm so excited about that. I just spoke yesterday with Celia Marie, who is the author of a wonderful book called God-Given Food.
Nice.
Check it out. We have a link on our website for that book. She was thinking everything I was thinking, and she wrote this book about 10 or 11 years ago. And then she got busy with other things and kind of it's out there, but she's been distracted. Well, she's tired of the other things and she's coming back. So I reached out to her, tracked her down, and she's going to be a speaker probably when we have our event in Tennessee in September. So I'm waiting to finalize that, but we're planning on doing an event at the Rory Feek homestead outside of Columbia, Tennessee, which is about an hour out of Nashville. So
that'll be fun too.
Oh, we're picking areas where there are a lot of people who are interested in this. Tennessee is full of people who are migrating there from other states because they want freedom. They want to be able to raise, grow, and purchase and just have the foods that they want without being impeded by the government. Tennessee is pretty good for that. And so there are a lot of people who are already interested, really interested and eager to learn. And the Rory Feek homestead is a really beautiful place. I was there, I think in May or June for a Homesteaders of America event. And of course, you saw the interview with Joel and Rory. I think a lot of Rory. He's a really, really neat person.
Yeah, his story is beautiful, isn't it?
It is. I was following it in the last 6 years when his wife died. And I'm sure I was like a lot of other people it was just a powerful, moving event. Mm-hmm. He is a wonderful man who is 100% married to that woman, even though she is, she's buried on their farm underneath.
How long ago did she pass away? Do you remember when that was?
5.5 years ago. Yeah, almost 6. It was January or February. I think January. Mm-hmm. It'll be 6 years this next winter. There are pictures of them together all over the place that their marriage was so good, so beautiful that he's one of those people who he's still married. Yeah. He wears his wedding ring. It's as if she's still there. Not that he's not faced reality, he's doing a great job in his community, a great job raising their daughter.
Yes.
It's really, their life is moving. And he writes the blog, This Amazing Life I Live. I think I have that right.
And there's a lot of really neat YouTube videos. That's how I got got connected and found out who he was, because I'm not a country music person so much, but I found the videos and was sucked in for too long one time, watching their story. It was so equally beautiful and moving and sad.
But beautiful, bittersweet, but beautiful.
Right.
And he keeps the memory of his wife alive. And even in her death, it was how I would want to go, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, this is
that's
awesome, Maureen. This sounds like a really great business idea and something that's so needed. And I know I told you this when you called me about this a few months ago. And I remember when I first got into, real food and found the Weston Price Foundation. A lot of times back then it was sort of like a bunch of, sort of hippies and whatever. But I've noticed over time how cool it is that it has really evolved, and now real food is everyone. Like, everyone's interested in real food, and there's so many like-minded Christians now, and it's just so refreshing. And when we're at the conference, I'm a Catholic Christian, so at the conference there's a group of us that go to mass together on Sunday morning, and it's so beautiful to connect with so many like-minded people in all areas, all ranges of all types of people.
I agree. And I'll tell you that when I first shared this idea with Sally last spring, she warned me not to get my hopes up, that the Christian community was a hard to crack nut. Not that they're nutty.
Like, in what way? I don't agree. Like, in what way do you think she meant?
Well, I think that it's changed now, and that's my point. She tried getting into the Christian community. She spoke at many churches. I helped exhibit at one or two when in the early days, but they just weren't listening. But I think that has really changed, especially in the last 2 years. People are realizing.
I think so too.
Yeah, and they're receptive. Did you ever read Joel's book, The Marvelous Pigness of Pigs?
It's in my pile somewhere. I have so many book piles.
I have one that's literally like this big next to my favorite chair, and I sit in that chair about once a month.
Yeah,
okay.
I do too. Mine is probably double that size, not kidding. I've had to split it up now because everything tips over all the time.
Well, I did read the Marvelous Pigness of Pigs a few years ago, and Joel really talks about that. I already knew that I loved Joel. I was very well acquainted with him. We were often together. He knew me, I knew him. But when I read that book from the opening pages, I thought, man, it's like our ideas are exactly the same. He talks about how this whole movement has been kind of on that, I don't know if hippie is the right word, but the granola, the crunchy crowd, the environmentalists, and the environmentalists were not Christians, but now that's changing. And he talks in that book about that it's really wrong, that we're supposed to be stewards of this earth, stewards of our bodies, stewards of everything God has given us. And yet we've given that over to science and experts, medical doctors and government. We've given that over when, as we talked from the very beginning about, God gives us instructions. Why are we ignoring them? He gives us instructions in farming, in food production, what foods we should eat. We can even see how to prepare food. And many things have been demonized for years that are God-given foods. I love just that phrase. And when I saw Celia Marie's book, God-Given Foods, it was, oh yes, exactly right. Those foods that are demonized for years and years are actually the foods we need to be eating. And we need to step away from that crunchy granola crowd that might be kind of, people think woo-woo. We as Christians need to embrace all of this because it comes from God, and we cannot be healthy without it. And we can't raise.
I love this, Maureen. I think you're really onto something, because now, even though, as we talked about, these, all the people are, blending and coming together, but now we need to go out and invite more Christians to come into this and to understand it more and to come along with us.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what we want. Come along with us. Let us teach you. Let's share. I just want to help people.
Yeah.
I've wanted to do that for years. I feel like now I'm at a point in my life where I can. Our youngest is 14. We're still homeschooling, but I can do this now. I can't do it alone. I need you. I need my children, my family. I need my friends. I need Joel. I need everyone. I can't do it by myself. And then, frankly, I don't want to do it by myself.
It's more
But
fun to do it together anyway.
It is. And we do a much better job of it. We're more effective when we work together as a group. So this has nothing to do about me. It's all about just helping people out there. And I hope to bring non-Christians into the fold.
Right.
I want people to see that God gives us life. God gives us the air that we breathe. God gives us everything that we need to be healthy in every facet of our lives. Of course, spiritually is the main thing.
But when we're more well nourished, we can then help more people, reach more people, evangelize more people.
And that's the crux of it. When we need to be served, sometimes it's hard for us to humble ourselves to the point that we can accept service from others. That's been hard for me. It's been a challenge over the years, and it's something I've had to grow in, because there have been times when I or my family has really needed things, and people have stepped in and offered help, and it's hard for me to go,
yeah,
oh, okay.
It's no fun to be on that end. It's much more fun to be on the giving end.
Yeah, to be on the giving end. But if we are too sick to be on the giving end, then we need to learn
humility.
We need the humility to accept help and to see that God offers help for us to recover, to regain health in most situations. And then we can go out and we can be a servant of others. So that's kind of the crux of it for me. I don't want to be served. I really want to be a servant. So we have to be healthy and strong in order to do that. So I want to go out and help people.
I love it, Maureen. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us today. And I can't wait for everyone to hear this.
Me too. Hear, share, visit our website, godsgoodtable.com. Give us suggestions. We want your input. You can email us at hello@godsgoodtable.com. I don't remember our phone number, but you can call as well. And if anyone has ideas for or wants seminars or has ideas for other things, just let us know.
Yeah, like maybe their church would want you to come do a seminar at their church. That would be great, wouldn't it?
That would be great. I've done that in the past. There have been several cities across the country where I've gone and taught. I love to do that. So yeah, if you have people, just let me know. Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, Maureen. It was great having you.
Thank you. And thanks for being a big encouragement, Kelly, as you always have been.